interesting. Dana White has made some very interesting comments of late. Revealed plan that he expects to get into the boxing business after kind of hinting at it for a long time, but never jumping back into the water after years being involved with it. And he's going to be involved with Turkey Al-Sheikh. Also, Oscar De La Hoya, along with Turkey, was at 306. Maybe something with Oscar. Oscar's been working with his eminence or his Saudiness or whatever it is. They're kind of working together. Maybe Oscar and Dana have always had issues, but maybe this is an alliance being formed for boxing's sake. What do you think? I mean, we got Al-Sheikh, however said his Saudiness. Him and Dana are going to work together. That's big because you got this huge money and you have a fantastic promoter. Maybe if you get Oscar involved, you get a pool of fighters that can help with that as well. Is this a grand scheme by the three? And as they touch the glowing orb of boxing, is this their plot? Their plan to take over boxing? And can it work? And should it work? Is this the way boxing needs to go? We need to get a bunch of people together that have all these strong elements and abilities and make like a UFC of boxing. And Dana White is the guy to do it.
Do we really want that? Like that's a big question to ask. Like, because there are some really cool things about having one league sort of control everything, but there are a lot of bad things about having one league control everything. So if I'm a top level boxer, I don't like this idea at all because, my 45% of gate revenue and my 30% of pay-per-view and all in my 20% of concessions and all the crazy percentages that these guys get per event when you are at the absolute top level. Yeah, be happy with a 50K bonus, bro. Because that's what it's going to be headed to. Because as you eliminate competitors, there's no incentive to lure talent monetarily. Then it's just, hey, you want this pat on the back, this AO boy. That's exactly what they'll be fighting for. If this master plan of a league comes to fruition. That being said, this master plan, I guarantee you, Dana is not sitting there trying to plot with Oscar De La Hoya. That's not
you
happening.
Never know. You never know. Vince McMahon worked with Eric Bischoff for the wrestling fans. You never know.
No, I'm not saying that it's not going to happen. I'm saying that that's not what Dana's thinking about right now. That's going to be something that Turkey is going to have to put together. He's going to have to put some of these people in the same room and facilitate the conversations in order for these things to happen, or just write a big enough check to where they just hide the lead pipe and the baseball bat behind their back and just talk to each other. Like that's the only way that's going to happen. Now, I do think that boxing can benefit from some of the UFC style or some of the things from the UFC. And Turkey Al-Sheikh has done a decent job of introducing some of these elements, which is why he's garnered so much support among the fan base, because he is helping put together these matches between these different promoters that people want to see. The whole Queensberry versus Matchroom card was fantastic. And like, we pretty much will never see a UFC versus a PFL as of right now. We never got UFC versus Strikeforce. We never got, we got iterations of Pride versus the UFC. We got little touches of it here and there, but we never got the full on package of what promotion versus promotion looks like. Turkey Al-Sheikh has been able to deliver that. So he's got to get his credit for that. I think we can look at that. We were just talking about how crazy the heavyweight division has been lately, just a couple minutes ago. The heavyweight division right now is sort of, I think, what we could look forward to if there was some league where everyone is just fighting one another and losses don't mean as much, because you look at just about everybody ranked in the top 10 at heavyweight, whether you're looking at, the rankings that we put together for Ringside Intel, you look at ESPN, you look at Boxing Scene or any other major outlet, and just about everybody's got a loss.
Mm.
except Usyk, right? I think Usyk's like the only one, and
Yeah.
and except for a couple guys that are coming up that that most people have not heard of yet, that are 20-0 and whatnot, and they're working their way up. But all the guys you've heard of, with the exception of Usyk, have a loss. Let the best fight the best. If you lose, you lose. It happens, because fights, anything can happen. So if that is the mentality that's adopted by just the sport of boxing, I'm cool with that. I just don't like a lot of the business implications that come with it.
I'm torn. The point of fighter pay, that's a big one. That's the only issue I have with it, because otherwise I think it needs to happen. I'm over boxing, and I'm not the only one. We're tired of it. UFC has shown an idea that works. Not great for fighter pay, but it delivers for the fans. It delivers for the people that are putting tickets down for the pay-per-view buys. I'm just over, I would love a ultimate boxing championship title, so we can get rid of these dumbass commissions. Maybe we get rid of all these dumb weight classes, and we cut 3 or 4 of them out of, I just think boxing has become so dumb. Boxing has become so ridiculous. Jake Paul is a name. Boxing is so ridiculous that we have celebrity boxing that is making money on the zone. This is not good. You're not having that in UFC. MMA is not happening, because UFC is the biggest. It's the NFL of MMA, and it's where everybody wants to go. It's where the fights would go, and we get the fights. Rarely do we not get the fights we want in UFC. Okay, we look at, we didn't get GSP versus Anderson Silva, and there's like 3 or 4 others, but we always get the fights we want. Boxing has made a tradition on not giving us the fights that we want. So I would be completely open to it. You got the financial might. You've got a genius of a promoter. I say do it. I think the only drawback, but that can be fixed with Turkey. His Saudiness is money. He can pay people a lot of money, and that's the big difference. Maybe that's a thing, but they could promote fighters better. Fighters might become better names. You might get some young stars. We won't have this. Oh, well, Shakur Stevenson fight Gervonta. But no, they're just gonna fight, and it's gonna be on a car with another. I'm so for it. I'm curious to see what Dana does. I don't think he'd get into anything unless he thought he could be successful. So I'm curious what they do. And to have him working with Al-Sheikh is fascinating. And they can get De La Hoya involved too. He can be one of the faces of it. He has a long history. He's a legend. He has a stable of fighters. He's a good talent evaluator. He's a great talent evaluator until his fighters get tired of him and then they leave, but he finds talent, and that's what you want.
He's a great talent evaluator until they check their bank accounts.
yeah. Until they, so Oscar won't be handling the bank accounts, but he should be involved.
They look at that contract. I'm like, what the hell? And then, then all of a sudden it happens. You bring up some very good points, and I think from a fan perspective, that is certainly a valid take to have. But I think for guys like me and you, who have invested a great deal of our adult lives into this and deep diving into a lot of the nooks and crannies that the average person is not, we have to err on the side of caution here. A boxing league sounds initially really great. Remember, there was a lot of energy around the UFC after the tough era, the first tough season. That all that energy, and I'm sure you remember that very, very fondly. Looking forward to seeing the UFC card and knowing the best were fighting the best. Yeah. Here we are some years down the line. The UFC is by far and away the most successful fight promotion that's ever existed. And now we're sitting here twiddling our thumbs, thinking to ourselves, do we really want to watch UFC Vegas 79 prelims today?
It's not good, but it's still better than most boxing cards.
I beg to differ, man. I'm actually more entertained by boxing now than I am mixed martial arts in general.
Okay.
Which is kind of odd to say, because the action in mixed martial arts, I think has a more visceral appeal to it, because you got kicks and knees and whatnot. There's more the action movie things can happen.
Yeah.
But I like the pace of boxing is something different now. I think that the names that we're hearing about more and more, they're starting to intermingle a lot more than we're used to. it's having an energy around it. I mean, we can thank Turkey for a lot of that, for bringing some of these names together. If there is going to be some league, or at least some, like, if he is sort of the central piece, it's sort of getting everyone to play ball with one another, I'm cool with that. I mean, if Dana White's going to be involved, that Eddie Hearn is going to be a part of it. Frank Warren is probably going to be there. De La Hoya is aligning himself with Turkey as well, so he's probably going to be in the mix. Then that means that some of the other promoters are going to have to start playing ball too, and you're going to have all these people just mixing and mingling, and their fighters are going to be doing the same. So I'm cool with that. Now, as far as Jake Paul, being a thing, I don't think that's the fault of boxing necessarily. It's because combat sports has always been a sideshow to real sports, right? It's always been this sort of circus attraction, and some people just highlight the circus part of it a little more than others. But it is sort of a ridiculous thing when you look at it compared to some of the more traditional stick and ball sports, as far as how they're run, as far as the oversight, as far as the personalities involved. We're talking about a whole nother subset of society that tends to attract a lot of really crazy people. So sometimes those really crazy people are just genuinely really crazy, and they do crazy things, and you have a Jake Paul that becomes a star.
I have to push back on that because there was a time where boxing was the biggest sport in America, in the world. I mean, Max Schmeling versus Joe Louis wasn't the biggest moments in sports history in the world. And this is a time when baseball is still around, other sports. There was once a great deal of prestige. Muhammad Ali versus Joe Frazier was one of the biggest, events in the world, in America. Like, boxing was number one for a time. Boxing ruined itself when guys were, going to jail and then getting a title fight, people biting ears, Galata versus Bo. Like, it made itself a sideshow. It wasn't a shy show because it was a prestige sport with the best and the toughest. People could understand, just like Dana White's always pushed. So I think it's turned itself into a sideshow. It's pushed away young fans that UFC gladly picked up. It made itself a golf audience where it's just older people. And unfortunately, boxing was able to get some younger fans because Jake Paul brought his younger fans. I just think, and also just, I'm tired of these promoters, like the Don Kings, the Bob Arams. Like, there's a lot of cons, but getting these guys and their agendas, because they're out to make their money, and you just break it down to one, it just makes it better for the fan. I feel sorry for the fighter in that way, a lot of ways, but boxing has done a lot over the last century to ruin itself. We'll see.